Splatoon is a relatively new franchise. Having hit the scene only 7 years ago in 2015, the series has grown to incredible heights extremely fast, rightfully securing itself a spot as one of Nintendo's top franchises. These goofy squids and octopi have made their way to icon status in very little time. Since the series' debut on this lovable disaster of a system, it's released 3 core entries, the third of which is brand new. Now, there's a lot I could make an entire video all on its own about. Hell, the ink mechanic is some of the most genuinely brilliant game design I've ever seen. But this video is focused on something else. Something I've deeply adored the Splatoon series for, and that is world building. Frankly, I don't think any other game I've ever played has done it better. Let's appreciate it today. If you're out of the loop, Splatoon is a lightning-paced 4v4 competitive shooter by Nintendo. When I say lightning pace, I mean it. Splatoon is one of, if not the fastest shooter on the market right now. This game's pace is absolutely insane. The main gimmick of this series is that instead of shooting bullets, you shoot ink. Gloopy, colorful ink. The primary game mode of Splatoon, Turf War, has 2 teams of 4 compete to try and cover as much ground as possible in their ink. You can swim around and reload in your own ink, but touching enemy ink causes damage and a severe mobility decrease. You get 3 minutes to sling your ink as much as possible, and then it's weapons down. From the surprisingly profound lore, to the history, to fictional languages and culture, Splatoon's world building has created one of the most detailed and well-crafted game worlds I've ever had the pleasure of learning about. Everything about this world feels so alive, so lived in. The attention to detail in everything is downright insane. Everything you see around you at all times has had immense thought put into it. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. To appreciate the insane attention to detail that goes into every facet of this world. When talking about the world of Splatoon, it's important to establish that this world came about from, well, ours. It takes place on our very own Earth, extremely far in the future, albeit. Someone unfamiliar with the lore may be extremely confused about how we went from humanity to, well, this. Let's take a dive, shall we? It all started with our own human race. There would be 5 more world wars before our inevitable extinction. Humans were wiped out by a great flood, caused by a warhead striking Antarctica. It caused ocean levels to rise rapidly, which ultimately wiped our entire race out. However, there's a few exceptions. While not going into too much detail, let's establish that there were 2 groups of human survivors for a time. One group found peace residing in an underground cavern they dubbed Alterna. The other constructed a rocket, the Arc Polaris, and went to space with some animals in search for a habitable planet. Both of these groups failed to survive. The Arc Polaris collided with a devastating chunk of space debris, and the humans inside set its course back to Earth before their untimely demise. The people of Alterna were perhaps the closest to success. They developed an advanced type of glass that could absorb human thought and relay it as if it were an image on a screen, and they covered the walls of the cavern in it in an attempt to give their depressing cavern a sky painted by the memories of mankind. Eventually, they got greedy and attempted to escape back to the surface in a desire to see the planet they once inhabited. The launch failed, causing devastating damage, ending them and everyone in Alterna. The glass containing human memories shattered and fell into the water. This caused something peculiar to happen to the sea life below. They started to begin rapidly evolving, with the essence of humans. Thousands of years later, global water levels recede and sea life within Alterna escapes to explore the vast world left behind by humans. And that is how these goofy little dudes came to be. And trust me, there is so much more to it all. It gets into excruciating detail, and these cephalopods themselves have their own history too, including the in-game story events of all 3 game story modes. I wouldn't have time to cover it all today, but I definitely recommend playing them. The world's history isn't the only thing that makes Splatoon's universe feel so well developed, and frankly, it's not even the biggest factor. That would go to the rich culture of the Inklings and Octolings. Everything about the culture of these funny cephalopods is extremely developed and detailed, down to even the most minor of things. Let's start by talking about the very language they speak. For a long time, we thought most of this jumbled up text was completely indecipherable. That is, until some amazing members of the community had a breakthrough in actually decoding this pile of nonsense. And yeah, it's legible. In fact, some of it directly translates into English. There are multiple types of written scripts in the Splatoon universe. I mean multiple. Like 14 multiple. They range from blocky to rounded to whatever this is, and they're all used in different places. The Inklings have their own set, but so do the Octarians. There's unique scripts in the Deep Sea Metro and in Alterna, and that's just getting started. All of this text can be deciphered too, from the writings of the sunken scrolls to street signs, posters, clothing, TV, pretty much everywhere you can see. Some of it is even profanity. I'm not kidding. The team could have just made one script, smashed their keyboards, and called it a day, and nobody would have bat an eye. But this is just one example of the insane attention to detail this world has been given. Another big part of Inkling culture is, like our own, music. Now, Splatoon's music has a reputation of being, well, weird. And yeah, it is. It's in a completely gibberish, gurgly language. But these tracks aren't just in-game. They're diegetic. Every single one of these songs is composed by an in-universe band, with in-universe singers. In Splatoon 3, they even show you exactly whose music is playing the moment the battle starts. They all have their own unique styles, albums, members, just like our music. Their taste changes over time too, like ours. You have the classic rock sound with the first game's very own Squid Squad, the ones behind the iconic Splatak, as well as songs like the fun and energetic Seascape. Head over to Splatoon 2 and you can get a taste of Wet Floor, a new quintet bringing a brand new sound to battles. With their unique blend of multiple genres, seriously, I had a hard time even defining it while writing this. They've made popular hits such as Incoming, as well as others such as the fun and bassy Rip Entry. Finally, and most recently, Splatoon 3 sees the powerful debut of Seaside, bringing their own hard rock, grungy, uniquely hyped style. They're the creators of the extremely exciting rock anthem of the Splatlands, Clickbait, to the super metal, screamy grunge sound of Paint Scraper, and, uniquely in Seaside's case, a cover of Squid Squad's iconic Splat, fused with their own style. Besides the ones I've just covered, there are so many more bands that fuel these cephalopods' favorite sport. Speaking of, I haven't really mentioned it yet, have I? To the Inklings and Octolings, Turf War and the various multiplayer ranked modes are the hottest sport in town. Seriously, these guys live and breathe this stuff. The big one here is Turf War. As I mentioned before, 2 teams of 4 compete to see who can sling the most ink within 3 minutes. But before that, you've got to pick a weapon. Now, you may be asking, what could Inkling and Octoling weaponry possibly even look like? This is one of the most interesting details about the franchise. All of these weapons have been crafted together with, or inspired by, human junk. I mean, just look! You have your standard shooters based on water guns, but it goes far, far deeper than that. Paint rollers have been modified to be used as a weapon. You can roll forward or shake the roller horizontally or vertically to fling ink. Buckets of ink, called sloshers, can be taken into battle as a simple way to dump a bucket load of the stuff, literally, onto your enemies. And that's nowhere near the end. Bows, stamp rollers, umbrellas, you name it. These smart little cephalopods have utilized it all. It's always super interesting to see what the new weapons are based off of. And it only further pushes the already insane attention to detail everything in this series has. We can't talk about culture without fashion though, can we? Because I completely forgot to mention that Inklings and Octolings love their fashion. Seasonal catalogs, clothing stores in shopping districts, and just a pure, unfiltered desire to look fresh. Fashion is one of the biggest parts of this culture. To push it a step even further, every single piece of clothing in this franchise has been made by a fictional clothing brand, who all specialize in different styles, types, and varieties of clothing. You have the basic and beginner-friendly Squid Force, who specialize in simple, mobile clothing. Then there's the lightweight and active Enperry, who make sporting gear like jerseys and basketball shoes. Then you have Anarchy, a brand that brings the post-punk style into all of their products. There's the footwear-centric Takraoka, who produce mainly footwear, and of course, everyone's favorite, Tony Kenza, which is basically the Gucci or Louis Vuitton of Splatoon. They have a super stylish and iconic black and white style, sometimes with a splash of their signature red. and in true premium brand style, they are pricey as hell. And as usual, this is only scratching the surface of them all. All this talk about language, music, and fashion is all well and good, but let's cap off the culture talk with the big event that ties it up all into one huge celebratory package: Splatfests. Splatfests are a celebration of everything about Inkling culture. The town is decorated head to toe in flashy lights, colors, and community-drawn art. The idols of each respective game put on a show to light the town ablaze with fresh beats, while the Inklings and Octolings come out at night to play turf war and vibe to the sights and sounds. Each Splatfest has a theme, and participants fighting in turf war battles to gain clout for the team of their choosing. Cats or dogs, cake or ice cream, rock, paper, or scissors. Pick the team you prefer, and fight for its glory in turf war. The team that wins the most of the voting categories is declared the winner. Splatfests happen about once a month, real time, and last for about 2 days. Once the time is concluded, the winners will be announced and the teams will get their rewards. I love just roaming the hub while Splatfests are happening, and taking in everything there is to see and hear. It's the perfect reminder of how much detail goes into every single corner of this world. But Splatfests are not the only thing that happens in real time. That brings me to the continuity between all three games, and how establishing a timeline between them is the icing on the cake of making the Splatoon universe feel so real. So, time passes between games. Real time, in fact. The gap between these release years is exactly the amount of time that's passed in universe as well. Every release is a bookmark in that chapter of Inkling society. In the first game, your player character, Agent 3, is said to be around 14 years old. Jump to Splatoon 2 and they're around 16 years old. 2 years have passed since the events of Splatoon 1. They've honed their skills, gotten a little edgier, and pop in to save the day during the events of Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. And finally, the jump to Splatoon 3 has them at around 21 years old, taking on the role as captain of the new Squidbeak Splatoon. The growth of this character is such a small but incredible detail, especially for the players who've been playing since the very first game. It gives the sort of feeling that they're, well, growing up with you. That was you 7 years ago. Agent 3 isn't the only thing that changes between games. Inklings have migrated from Inkopolis Plaza in the first game to Inkopolis Square in the second. It's not too far away, but it's a brand new bustling hub for these sporty squids to get their game on. 5 years after this, with the results of the final fest in hand, we'll get to that later, they migrate far out to a rapidly developing area known as the Splatlands, particularly a bustling town called Splatsville. These three areas are the respective hub areas of each game, but they're also home to different idol groups. Idols, like our own world, are extremely popular among Inklings and Octolings. At every point in time, a new group takes over to become the hot topic among crowds. In Splatoon 1, the famous Squid Sisters, Callie and Marie, provided Inkopolis Plaza with their fresh pop performances, Inkopolis news, and ran Splatfests. In Splatoon 2, that job was handed over to a popular new hip-hop EDM duo, Off the Hook. Starring the energetic, lovable, and goblin-like Pearl, and the chill, cool, and mysterious Marina. They also ran Splatfests and Inkopolis News for a time. Come Splatoon 3, and the Splatlands have their own trio, Deep Cut, starring Shiver, Fry, and Big Man. This trio blends 3 distinct cultural sounds into their own chaotic mix. They also run the Anarchy Splatcast, a news podcast program for residents of Splatsville. And, of course, Splatfest 2. Furthermore, we can see changes in other areas of Greater Inkopolis as well. Remember Hammerhead Bridge from Splatoon 1? It's been reopened in Splatoon 3, and its construction has completely finished. Even the changes to the game itself have been contextualized in this way. Splatoon 1 specials were extremely powerful and downright broken at times. So, in Splatoon 2, they were replaced with an all-new set of specials. However, this doesn't mean that the Inklings and Octolings had to necessarily agree with this change. Actually, we know for a fact that some didn't. We can see protest signs from around the borders of Inkopolis Square, protesting the removal of the old specials. Particularly here, we can see the Inkzuka weapon from Splatoon 1. Both of the final Splatfests of both Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 have essentially determined the course of the future titles. In the first game, players got to pick between Callie and Marie, which one they liked more. The outcome ended up with Marie winning, and because of that, Callie ended up going missing, and turning up as one of the main antagonists of the second game's story. Fast forward to the second game, and the theme was definitely kicked up a notch from picking your favorite idol girl. Which would you rather live in? A world of chaos or a world of order? Yeah, they pulled a Shin Megami Tensei. In this valiant battle to determine a winner, Chaos ended up on top, and the future was set in stone from there. Chaos seeps its way into a large portion of Splatoon 3's identity, from the hard rock music to the increased attitude, to the migrating to a desert wasteland, to Deep Cut and their chaotic blend of culture. The future was shaped by this Splatfest. By us. A fight to essentially determine the series' future? That is incredible. It's honestly one of the coolest events I've ever played in a video game. Although I was on Team Order and lost, the fact that our battles determined this game's identity is awesome. To think, me sucking at Turf War may have contributed to Splatoon 3's Chaos theme is pretty damn funny. This concept, a fight for the direction of the next game, lets Splatoon's world feel not only bustling and alive, but it feels like we're a part of it as well. Even after all this, and everything I've laid out and explained, there's still so much more to this. It feels endless. I'm always finding something new to talk about this world of silly squid kids, and that's why I've fallen in love with it. And trust me, I have so much more to say about this series. As I've said earlier, the ink mechanic alone deserves an entire analysis video. But all of this just goes to show how in-depth Splatoon's world building is. It has one of the most alive, detailed, and bustling game worlds I've ever seen. Was there any point to this video? Maybe not. Perhaps I just wanted an opportunity to gush about Splatoon. But hey, here I am. And hopefully, if you've made it all the way here, you enjoyed this little ramble as well. If you've never or only mildly taken an interest in Splatoon, I hope I could shed some light on one of its best aspects, and hopefully you'll give it a try too. And if you're a Splatoon fan and just wanted to hear more about this world you already love so much, I've been there too. And I deeply, deeply apologize for the lack of squid puns in this video. I'm sorry, I just couldn't write them. But that's all the time I've got. Stay fresh and don't get cooked. Catch you later.